The fluorescent lights of Henderson's department store cast harsh shadows across Maria's tired face as she pushed the industrial mop across the marble floor. It was 11:47 p.m. on Christmas Eve, and while the rest of the city celebrated with their families, she was here, cleaning up the remnants of last-minute shopping chaos, discarded receipts, muddy footprints, and the sticky residue of spilled hot chocolate near the toy section. Maria paused, leaning against the mop handle, her lower back aching from 8 hours of work. Through the store's massive front windows, she could see snow beginning to fall, each flake catching the glow of streetlights like tiny stars. Somewhere out there, in a cramped apartment she could barely afford, her 7-year-old son Tommy was supposed to be sleeping. But she knew better. He was probably lying awake, wondering if Santa Claus would find them in their new place. They'd moved 3 weeks ago, evicted from their previous apartment when Maria couldn't make rent after her car broke down and ate up 2 months' worth of savings. The new place was smaller, in a rougher neighborhood, but it was all she could manage on her salary as a night janitor. She'd tried to explain to Tommy about the move, about why they had to leave behind the cozy 2-bedroom where he'd lived since he was a baby, where his height marks were penciled on the doorframe, where he'd learned to ride his bike in the parking lot. Tommy had been brave about it, braver than any 7-year-old should have to be. He'd packed his toys without complaint, helped carry boxes, and hadn't cried when they left his best friend Jacob behind. But 3 days ago, as Maria was sorting through boxes in their new apartment, Tommy had asked her a question that broke her heart into pieces. "Mom, does Santa know we moved? Did you tell him our new address?" Maria had frozen, a stack of plates in her hands, fighting back tears. She'd been so focused on survival, on finding this job, on getting Tommy enrolled in his new school, on making sure they had food and heat, that she'd completely forgotten about Christmas. There was no money for presents this year. She'd hoped Tommy wouldn't notice, that at 7 he might be starting to outgrow the magic, but his question proved otherwise. He still believed. He still had hope. She'd swallowed hard and told him, "Of course, sweetheart. Santa knows everything," but the lie tasted bitter in her mouth. Now, as Maria resumed mopping, she heard footsteps echoing through the empty store. She looked up to see Mr. Henderson himself, the store's owner, walking toward her. He was a tall man in his 60s with silver hair and wire-rimmed glasses, always impeccably dressed even at this late hour. He still wore his 3-piece suit, though he'd loosened his tie. "Mrs. Alvarez," he said, his voice kind. "You're doing an excellent job, as always." "Thank you, Mr. Henderson," Maria replied, standing a bit straighter despite her exhaustion. She couldn't afford to lose this job. "I'm almost finished with this section." "Take your time," he said, but he didn't walk away. Instead, he seemed to be studying her face. "You've been here 3 weeks now, is that right?" Maria nodded, her heart suddenly racing. Was he unhappy with her work? Had she missed something? "And you're doing this alone? No husband to help?" Maria's throat tightened. "He passed away 3 years ago. Cancer." Mr. Henderson's expression softened. "I'm sorry. That must be incredibly difficult. Do you have children?" "A son, Tommy. He's 7. Before Mr. Henderson could respond, the front door of the store burst open. Maria's heart nearly stopped as she saw Tommy running inside, his thin jacket covered in snow, his Spider-Man pajama pants soaking wet from the knees down. Mrs. Chen from apartment 3B was hurrying after him, her own coat thrown on hastily over her nightgown. "Tommy." Maria dropped the mop and rushed toward her son. "What are you doing here? What's wrong?" Mrs. Chen reached them, breathless. "I'm so sorry, Maria. I tried to stop him, but he just ran out the door. He was supposed to be sleeping." Tommy's cheeks were flushed from the cold, and tears were streaming down his face. He ignored his mother and looked directly at Mr. Henderson, his small voice desperate and urgent. "Sir, are you Santa's boss? Can you tell Santa we moved? My mom forgot to tell him, and I need him to know our new address because I don't want him to go to the old apartment and think I'm a bad kid who moved away." The words tumbled out in a rush, and then Tommy was crying in earnest, his small body shaking with sobs. Maria sank to her knees and pulled him into her arms, her own tears finally breaking free. "Oh, baby," she whispered, holding him tight. "Oh, Tommy, I'm so sorry." Mr. Henderson stood very still, and when Maria looked up at him through her tears, she saw that his eyes had grown bright. He cleared his throat and then, to her surprise, he knelt down beside Tommy, bringing himself to the boy's level. "Young man," he said gently, "what's your name?" Tommy wiped his nose on his sleeve, trying to compose himself. Tommy Alvarez, sir. Well, Tommy Alvarez, I want you to know something very important. Mr. Henderson's voice was steady and warm. Santa doesn't need anyone to tell him when good children move. He has a very special way of knowing exactly where every child lives, no matter where they go. It's part of his magic. Tommy's eyes widened, hopeful but uncertain. Really, really. In fact, I happen to know that Santa pays extra special attention to children who are brave and helpful, especially when their families are going through difficult times. Children who pack up their toys without complaining. Children who help their mothers carry boxes. Children who try to be strong even when they're scared. Maria stared at Mr. Henderson in shock. How did he know those things? Had she mentioned them? Tommy was listening intently now, his tears slowing. But what if he goes to the wrong house? Mr. Henderson reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out a handkerchief, gently wiping Tommy's face. Tell you what, why don't you write down your new address for me, and I'll make absolutely certain that Santa has it. I can't tell you exactly how I'll do it, it's a secret, but I promise you, Tommy, Santa will know where to find you. Do you promise? Tommy's voice was small. I promise, Mr. Henderson said solemnly, but there's something else I need you to do. I need you to go home with Mrs. Chen and get into your warm bed and go to sleep. Santa can't come if you're still awake, remember? And I need you to stop worrying about whether he'll find you, because I guarantee he will. Can you do that for me? Tommy nodded slowly, then suddenly threw his arms around Mr. Henderson's neck. Thank you, sir. Thank you so much. Maria watched as this wealthy, powerful man hugged her son gently, patting his back, and she saw something in his expression, a deep, old sadness mixed with something that looked almost like relief. After Mrs. Chen had taken Tommy home, with promises that Maria would be back within the hour, an uncomfortable silence fell over the store. Maria picked up her mop with shaking hands. Mr. Henderson, I'm so sorry. That will never happen again. I've asked Mrs. Chen to watch him while I work, and she's very reliable. Tommy he's been so worried, and I didn't realize. Mrs. Alvarez, please stop. Mr. Henderson held up his hand. You have nothing to apologize for. But I do have some questions. You moved 3 weeks ago. Yes, sir. We were evicted. I fell behind on rent when my car broke down, and Maria's voice caught. I'm trying to catch up. This job is helping. I just need a little more time, and I'll be able to give Tommy a better Christmas next year. I just need. How were you planning to get home tonight? The question caught her off guard. Walking, sir. It's only about 40 minutes. In the snow, at midnight, with ice on the sidewalks. Maria didn't answer. What choice did she have? Mr. Henderson was quiet for a long moment, then he said, 30 years ago, I had a son. Daniel. He would have been about 35 now. He paused, his voice growing thick. He died when he was 8 years old. Leukemia. It was 2 days after Christmas. Maria's breath caught. Mr. Henderson, I'm so sorry. The last Christmas we had with him, we were in the hospital. Daniel was so sick, but he was worried about the other children on the ward. He wanted to make sure they all got presents. So my wife and I, we bought toys for every child in that pediatric unit. Mr. Henderson's eyes were distant, lost in memory. Daniel died happy, knowing those other kids would have something to open. That was the kind of boy he was. Brave, thoughtful, always worried about others, even when he was suffering. He turned to look at Maria directly. When your son ran in here tonight, desperate and afraid, worried about something that shouldn't be a child's burden, it reminded me of Daniel. Of how children see the world, how they worry about things we adults forget are important. Your son didn't ask for toys. He asked me to make sure Santa knew where to find him. He just wanted to be remembered, to be found, to not be forgotten in the chaos of moving. Maria's tears were flowing freely now. I tried, Mr. Henderson. I tried so hard, but I couldn't. I don't have anything to give him. There's no money for presents. I spent everything on the security deposit for the new apartment and his school supplies. I'm a terrible mother. You're not a terrible mother, Mr. Henderson said firmly. You're a mother doing everything she can with what she has. But tonight, if you'll allow me, I'd like to help. I'd like to make sure that when Tommy wakes up tomorrow, Santa has found him. Before Maria could respond, Mr. Henderson was walking purposefully toward the toy section. In a daze, she followed him, watching as he began selecting items from the shelves: a new bicycle with training wheels, a complete set of art supplies, books, board games, a warm winter coat in Tommy's size, new shoes, pajamas. "Mr. Henderson, I can't accept this. It's too much." He turned to her, his arms full of boxes. "Mrs. Alvarez, my wife and I lost our only child. We have more money than we could ever spend, and no one to spend it on. This store has been successful beyond my wildest dreams, but what's the point of any of it if I can't help a little boy believe in magic for one more year?" His voice broke. "Please, let me do this, not for you, but for Daniel. For the child I couldn't save. Let me help the child I can." Maria covered her mouth with her hand, overwhelmed. "I don't know what to say. Say yes, and then, tomorrow, I want you to take the day off. Paid. Spend it with your son. I'll have my driver take you home tonight, and these gifts will be delivered to your apartment within the hour, after Tommy is asleep. But my shift is over. Go home, Maria. Be with your son on Christmas." As they loaded the gifts into Mr. Henderson's car, he asked for her address. Maria gave it to him, still feeling like she was in a dream. Before the driver pulled away, Mr. Henderson tapped on the window. "One more thing," he said when Maria rolled it down. "After the holidays, come see me in my office. I've been looking for someone to coordinate our community outreach program. It's a day position, better pay, with benefits. I think you'd be perfect for it." Maria couldn't speak. She could only nod, tears streaming down her face, as the car pulled away into the snowy night. When she arrived home, Mrs. Chen met her at the door. "He's asleep, finally. He was so relieved after talking to your boss." "Thank you," Maria whispered. "For everything." After Mrs. Chen left, Maria checked on Tommy. He was sleeping peacefully, his cheeks still flushed, one arm wrapped around his stuffed bear. She kissed his forehead and whispered, "Santa will find you, baby. I promise." True to his word, Mr. Henderson's driver arrived at 1 a.m. with boxes and boxes of gifts. Maria spent 2 hours arranging them under the tiny Christmas tree she bought at the dollar store, this one scraggly and thin, but now surrounded by presents wrapped in beautiful paper. When Tommy woke up at 6 a.m., his scream of joy was so loud it probably woke the entire building. He ran into Maria's room, jumping on her bed. "Mom, Mom, Santa came. He found us. He found us." Maria let him drag her to the living room, where he marveled at each gift, his face glowing with wonder and relief. When he found the bicycle, he turned to her with tears in his eyes. "I knew he wouldn't forget me," Tommy whispered. "I knew Santa would find me." Maria pulled him into her arms, holding him close. "You're unforgettable, Tommy. To Santa, to me, to everyone who knows you. Moving doesn't change that. Hard times don't change that. You are loved and remembered, always." Later that morning, as Tommy was testing out his new art supplies, Maria's phone rang. It was Mr. Henderson. "Merry Christmas, Mrs. Alvarez. Did Santa find his way?" "He did," Maria said, her voice thick with emotion. "Mr. Henderson, I don't know how to thank you. You gave my son back his childhood, his belief, his joy. You gave him Christmas." "No, Mr. Henderson said softly. Your son gave me something I thought I'd lost. He reminded me why any of this matters. Why we work, why we build, why we try. It's for moments like this. It's for children like Tommy and Daniel. Thank you for letting me be part of his Christmas." That afternoon, as Maria watched Tommy ride his new bike up and down the apartment hallway, too excited to wait for spring to ride outside, she thought about Mr. Henderson's words, about how sometimes the people who give gifts receive something precious in return. About how loss and love are intertwined, how grief can transform into generosity, how the memory of one child can bring joy to another. Tommy had asked if someone could tell Santa they'd moved, worried that he'd been forgotten in the chaos of their difficult circumstances. But what he'd really been asking was simpler and more profound. Do I still matter? Will I still be found? Am I still worthy of love and magic even when everything has changed? And the answer, delivered by an unlikely Santa in a three-piece suit, carrying his own grief and transforming it into grace, was a resounding yes. As snow continued to fall outside their small apartment window, Maria understood that Christmas miracles aren't always about the presents under the tree. Sometimes they're about being seen, being remembered, being found when you're lost. They're about strangers who become angels, about grief that becomes generosity, about children who teach adults to believe again. Tommy pedaled past her once more, his laughter echoing through their new home, and Maria smiled through her tears. They'd been found, not just by Santa, but by kindness itself, showing up exactly when they needed it most, reminding them that even in the darkest times, even when you've been displaced and forgotten, even when you're just trying to survive, someone sees you, someone cares, and love will always find a way home.